You're listening to 91.7 FM, WSUW, in Whitewater, Wisconsin. You're listening to WSUW 91.7 FM, The Edge in Whitewater, Wisconsin. This is Rashkin Report, and I'm your host, Yuri Rashkin. I'm excited to welcome to the program an independent journalist, originally from Russia, currently in the United States, in the San Francisco area, Kseniya Kirillova. Kseniya, first of all, welcome to the program. Second of all, whereabouts are you, so that we let the audience know at least the general area where you're at?
I just have to warn you that it's my first interview in English, first in my life, and just 2 years ago my English was almost hopeless, and I live in the United States less than 3 years, and I never prepared to immigrate, so it will be a big shame, and I just hope you will help me with maybe correct English words, because it's my first experience.
Where are you?
Near San Francisco, in California.
Near San Francisco. All right, good enough. Well, Kseniya, you have been writing quite extensively in Russian and for various websites such as Kasparov.ru and
several services of Radio Liberty, Russian, Ukrainian, and Crimea service. The Crimea service is a special project of the Ukrainian service of Radio Liberty.
But you're sticking to Russian language.
Unfortunately, I don't know English well enough to write articles in it. I just don't feel this in this language.
All right. Although there are some writings of yours that appear that are available in English. Some of your articles.
Yes, several articles have been translated into English, and also well-known American expert, American analyst Paul Goebel made more than 100 reviews of them.
Excellent. So let us take a look at the situation. We have a new president of the United States who's now best friends with the president of Russia, and I take it you have a different view on both of these gentlemen. What are your thoughts on, as an independent journalist, trying to cover and uncover things? What is your impression of today's trend in government?
Honestly, I am very worried, as many other journalists and experts. Particularly because I saw my own eyes the same kind of evil in Russia. Lie, propaganda, slander, constant insulting political opponents. In Russia, it was the first steps before a dictatorship. I don't think that dictatorship is possible in the United States. Of course not, because American society is very different from Russian. So these negative tendencies leads to extreme division of American society, because Trump's constant attacks against representatives of various groups and against free press, American intelligence services, against those of his critics who have a great prestige in American society. It's just improving so it leads just to increasing of protest action against him, because Americans are not used to live under constant pressure of insulting and threats. Of course, it's led to extreme division of American society. And the second disturbing trend, Trump already caused a huge damage to the basic values of American society. As respect for individuals, human rights, dignity, reputation, freedom, international law, and justice. And maybe it's the more warning for me, because Trump gave a lie the same value as the truth. So he discredited truth as such, and truth in the United States now began to lose its significance. Everyone prefers to believe in a comfortable reality. Calling anything contrary is position propaganda, and don't bother to check the facts. And Trump always has advantage from the situation. But I just want to recall that in Putin's Russia and in other countries, people die for the truth. And I agree with a journalist from Fox News. Putin is a murderer. He's a killer. He and his secret service killed several oppositional journalists, oppositional politicians, and another critics. And many Americans just don't know how many people in Russia are in prison now and accused in criminal cases only for the posts in social networks. And not only journalists and politicians, but common people like housewives and saleswomen.
Just for posting.
Yes, they just posted or reposted some official Ukrainian TV programs against the war, for example, or some information about Russian military presence in the east part of Ukraine, in Donbass. So, or they wrote some posts against Russian occupation in Donbass, not against Russia as a nation, just against people who occupied another country. And they were accused in criminal cases, and by the way, in my hometown, Yekaterinburg. So many people died for the truth. Many people from several countries risked their life for the truth. I don't tell about agents of American intelligence services who every day put the lives in line, yes, as Americans said, online, yes, for the truth. And the truth is very meaning for me, is very matter, and matters. And now, already several American media wrote that Trump live in his alternative universe, like Russian government, and he doesn't care to check his statement and his information. So.
Most people know the 4 C's of the diamonds.
Oh, sorry.
It's
CNN. It's CNN News. I just no.
You don't consider Kseniya? You don't consider CNN fake news?
You just quoted an example of Trump's attacks against his opponents. So of course it's very disturbing trend. And
Kseniya, let me ask you. You're one of the people that is in this country because you really fought for the values of this country, and that's what brought you over here. And now you're saying that those values are being damaged. How does that make you feel as, going through the journey that you're on?
Sorry, what did you ask? Just ask.
How does this, right, you have mentioned in the past that you believed in America, that this was something like a country, the shining city on a hill, as was referred to.
America, but yes, I believed in American values, in spite of some problems.
Does it matter if America believes in American values for those values to exist?
Values still exist.
Maybe now those are Canadian values.
It's common values for human. Of course, they exist. It's impossible to destroy them. As my mentor, teacher, Paul Goebel, always told, America is not a territory, it's an idea. Of course, it will stay because people who believe in this idea are still alive. And don't forget that the majority of American society doesn't support Putin, and it's also example of Trump alternative reality because he prefers to communicate only with his supporters and not consider it necessary to negotiate with the rest of country. Sometimes it seems he even don't acknowledge about its existence. Yes.
No, I mean, it seems he just believes in the idea of power, and that's actually what probably makes him similar to the Russian leader.
He called this process just as a provocation from radical left. But it's absolutely not true because many people of different views just consider Trump's behavior as unacceptable at all. And so Trump was supposed to only buy 50% of population. And so 60% don't approve his actions for many reasons, and many of them for security reasons, not of the political views. And there are many people with conservative views who don't support Trump. And of course they believe in American values. Moreover, I hope that the only thing which can unite it, American society now, it's American values, as human rights and freedom and patriotism. And I just hope that eventually patriotism will become above partisanship. But now, unfortunately, we see.
I think there's plenty of patriots. I think there's plenty of people who call themselves patriots, but everybody means something different by it. You're listening to WSUW 91.7 FM, The Edge in Whitewater, Wisconsin. This is Yuri Rashkin, and you're listening to Rashkin Report, a program where we take a look at foreign affairs from a Russian point of view, utilizing some of the expertise from some most knowledgeable people we can find to talk to us. And today I'm excited to be joined by Kseniya Kirillova, an independent journalist. Kseniya, welcome. And let me ask you this. I think that people that have been listening to this program so far, besides the obvious, the information and the perspective that you bring, also are, you're saying that this is your first interview in English. I think people are not noticing not necessarily that, but the fact that you have a strong accent. And what, and usually, when I teach, I think that accents are great because they make people pay attention. But let me ask you this. Our first lady currently, she speaks with a strong accent as well. And I thought, what are your thoughts about her? She comes from at least similar part of the world. She is now in this position of power, at least, theoretically, or you can say certainly influence. What are your thoughts on Melania Trump?
Yuri, honestly, I didn't pay more attention to Melania Trump because the main sphere of my activity always was international issues. Just many our audience doesn't know, but all these years, almost 3 years, I tried to trace down Russian channels of influence in post-Soviet space, primarily on post-Soviet space in Balkans, because this information could prevent new Russian provocation or even worse. And before this election, I didn't interfere in American internal issues. Yes, domestic issues.
Right.
But it was impossible not to pay attention on Trump, of course. So yes, it's my first interview in English, and what regarding our topic, disturbing tendencies always related with Trump. As I already said, it's some bullying of American values and dividing of American society. And also I think Trump did huge damage to the United States intelligence community, particularly to the CIA, and open support of Vladimir Putin, uncritical citing of his claims, defending and praising him against his own intelligence, and comparison of the United States intelligence with the secret police in Nazi Germany, it's has been regarded by many American experts as a direct threat to national security. And the second consequences of these activities that Russian activities in many countries extremely increased after this election, and especially after Putin and Trump telephone conversation. So maybe you know about Russians' attempt to organize a military coup in Montenegro in last October. Yes,
former Yugoslavia. Yes.
The coup was filed, and then in November.
It wasn't filed, it was failed, but those are details. Okay.
My English is almost hopeless.
You're doing great. I just want to make sure that the audience can understand and follow along. Go ahead.
But I never prepared to immigrate, and
and here you are.
I just didn't have any choice. So yes, and I obtained a unique video which exposed connections between Montenegro terrorists. Montenegro terrorists, I mean people who was officially accused in this attempt by Montenegrin authorities, and now they are wanted by Interpol, by the Montenegrin requirement. And this video reveals links between Russian Ministry of Defense, Russian diplomats, and Montenegrin terrorists. It was the same guys who took part in Russian occupation in Crimea and Russian invasion in Ukraine. And, for example, the leader of Serbian radicals, Alexander Sinjaric, confessed that he gave recommendations for Russian Ministry of Defense to choose volunteers for participation in Russian operations in Ukraine, Russian military operations. So, and I obtained a photo, unique photo, with of another participant in Montenegrin coup, Nemanja Ristic, who is wanted by Interpol just now, with a Russian military attaché in Serbia, Andrei Kenzikov. So after Putin and Trump phone conversation, we see increasing of Russian military presence in Donbass, for example in Avdiivka. My Belarusian sources are very worried about their country, and they are sure that their country will be the next Putin's target, and maybe Putin will try to repeat a Ukrainian scenario in Belarus.
And there's also two specific stories that I think, I'm sure you'd want to mention as well, and those are the stories of Vladimir Karamurza Jr., who was poisoned for the second time, but apparently is now recovering from being in an medically induced coma. But also Alexei Navalny, who is a politician who ran for mayor of Moscow, somehow was allowed to run, and after all the falsifications, he didn't win, but apparently he got as high as 30% of the vote, and is currently the only viable member of any sort of opposition to Mr. Putin. And he was convicted once again of a crime that was absolutely ludicrous, but, apparently they decided to replay this at first, and that's what gives me pause in this situation with how much their relationship between Trump and Putin is affecting things on the ground in Russia, is that there was a European court that allowed for came out with a decision, as I recall, that Navalny's case had to be relooked at because it wasn't a fair trial. He wasn't given a fair trial. And so Russians replayed it, and they replayed it like identical, and the final verdict was read. It contained even the same typos that the verdict from years ago, a couple of years ago, I guess, when this took place originally, they just reread it. So somebody gave a flash drive. One judge gave a flash drive with the text to the other judge. So, and that case was also is a test case in a way, because it shows, the government was kind of trying to determine whether to let Mr. Navalny off and allow him to run for president against Mr. Putin in 2018, or to put him aside, and because he could be more dangerous than he's worth the trouble, and just get him out of political arena by convicting him of this fake crime. They seem to have agreed to just go that route. So it seems like things are getting worse on almost an hourly basis in Russia since Mr.
Of
Trump
course,
and Putin
after
had
talking
their
with
phone call.
Trump, Putin began the war with renewed strength, both in Ukraine and inside Russia. And both in Russian near both, like South Caucasus,
It's like the dogs are off the chain.
Ukraine, everybody now told me that United States is no longer ally of free world. It's ally of dictators, and they, of course, we are losing our allies abroad because they don't trust the United States government anymore. They know that United States will not protect them. As Russian dissident, like Navalny, Karamurza, you were absolutely right, as American allies abroad. So, and it's very painful for me to hear that United States now is a friend of dictators. They called Germany, for example, as leader of free world, and it's it's also great damage to the United States. Maybe you know that Donald Trump will be not allowed to address Parliament on the United Kingdom state visit. And the leading German newspaper compares Trump with Nero and calls on Germany and Europe, its direct quote, to prepare the political and economic defenses against America's dangerous president. Australian scientists compare Trump with Stalin. And I still cannot believe that all of this is about our America, our United States. I cannot imagine how can we then make amends for all this damage. I don't want to use the favorite Trump words, but because my vocabulary is limited, I have to use it. It's terrible. It's really terrible, and because America changing under Trump beyond recognizing, and it's very disturbing for all the world. Putin's and Trump friendship. We still don't know. We still don't have a direct evidence about the character of the relationships, but it's obvious that
we don't have an official non-aggression pact that hasn't been signed.
It's obvious that Kremlin has made a bid for Trump and still is not deceived in its expectation.
Kseniya, let me ask you a question, and let me just a quick reset. Once again, you're listening to WSUW 91.7 FM, The Edge in Whitewater, Wisconsin. This is Rashkin Report, and I'm your host, Yuri Rashkin. On the program with me today is Kseniya Kirillova, an independent journalist originally from Russia, currently in near San Francisco, contacting us, speaking to us today via Skype. Kseniya, please tell me, what are your thoughts on the Trump dossier?
First of all, about Trump dossier, I have no way to check it, of course, because it's obviously not my level. So, as former CIA officer John Seifert told, it's possible for American law enforcement to check every trip, every money trafficking. So, but of course, Trump's own behavior raised many suspicions, because his hysterical reaction on the conclusion of all intelligence and a fanatic defending Putin is bad anyway, regardless of his motives. But it's raised more suspicion. In addition, what I saw in this dossier, and former intelligence officers agree with me, it fully reflects the style of work of Russian FSB. There are the usual methods. I don't know about Russian intelligence, so I have no experience how they work abroad. Only maybe all of us know active measures, which we can see from open sources. But I know how FSB operated inside country. And don't forget that Trump's first visit to the Soviet Union was organized in 1987 with participation of Russian embassy in the United States. So we can say that it was organized by KGB. And I know that if Russian special services are following alien, they always collect compromising material on him. Always. Because I was in human rights defendants environment in Russia, in dissident environment, and we faced with hidden cameras, wiretapping phones, and then publication of this compromise. So we just face with all of them, and we know that how they operated. And my sources in Serbia constantly inform me that Russian not only have started a new aggressive destabilization in Balkans, but they assured the agents that Trump in any case would not prevent them. And of course I have many questions on what basis they guarantee this. As I said before, we don't have direct evidence, but first of all, many of CIA veterans thought that there are maybe some accurate information there. Mr. Trump's behavior confirmed this. It reflects the style of work of Russian special services, and Kremlin confident in future action on Trump. So much that transmits this confidence to his allies and agents in other countries. That's all we know at the moment. And maybe some of this information was not accurate because it was provided by different sources. But don't forget about a strange death of Yeravichin, who probably was one of sources which was used.
Why do you think that having compromise or blackmail on Trump is, I think it's been shown that he is currently immune to all of these things anyway.
The strange death of Yeravichin is just another indirect proof of veracity of this dossier. And we know that several FSB officers in Lubyanka, in FSB headquarters, was arrested and accused in state treason as probable sources for the United States Special Service about Russian hacking attacks. So it's another question: who exposed these people? We don't know. We just don't know. But if these people were really United States sources, we didn't face with same kind of treason since Aldrich Ames, I guess.
Kseniya, let me ask you. You are now living in the United States. You see how people are looking at, naturally, the secession idea in California, but also more broadly the Russian immigration into the United States has turned out to be very conservative by most accounts. Not 100%, but the overwhelming mindset of the stereotype of a Russian immigrant is somebody who's quite conservative, and yet these are the people that have come from communist countries.
Maybe I'm also.
Your thoughts?
It's the biggest problem than just conservative, unfortunately, because of course we all of us more conservative in comparison with, for example, American liberals, because people who lived in former Soviet Union don't like communism and don't like socialism. For example, I don't like socialism too, and it's really funny ridiculous to listen that only socialists on the left against Trump. But Trump is not conservative, first of all. For example, many of Russian experts and scientists already compared Trump with Bolshevik leaders. when they came to power. For example, Andrei Zubov, a Russian historian, in analyzing Trump speech, inauguration speech, compared it with the Bolshevik coming to power in Russia. For example, Zubov wrote that Trump as Bolsheviks tried to bring temptation to people probably blamed the misery on the establishment power, the kings, the landlords, the capitalists. Trump do the same against American establishment. He incited all immigrants against new ones, like Lenin incited people from other regions against another regions, Kazakhs against Russians. Trump use feeling of envy, urging Americans to competence the inferiority by humiliation of others. And Trump supported clothes industry against new technologies. But it's Trump's promises to bring back the jobs, and is simply absurd because it's contracting the basis principles of private property and free market. It's impossible to force people to do anything at the expense of their profits. It's thus breaking the laws of free market. It's not conservative. His advisor, Mr. Bannon, called himself as true Leninist, and told that he want to break all American institutions like Lenin did. It's something like Bolsheviks, like Leninist, but not conservative at first. But there are many Putin supporters.
So you're saying that Lenin was not a
conservative, of course, and Trump team also not a conservative. So but many people from Russian diaspora, they're not conservative. They support Putin. They support a cult of brutal force, like Putin or Trump. And just the supporting of Putin to Trump is just a continuation of the supporting of Putin. And unfortunately, maybe they keep a Soviet mentality, still keep the Soviet mentality, because
what is the Soviet mentality to you?
A cult of a brutal brute force, strong leader, unrespect to human rights, to people's dignity, to individuals, lie, propaganda, repressions. For example, even in 7 days, I saw an article that that Trump should to fines against worker. Yes. So it's also to consider the personal and the critics like personal enemies. It's a very dangerous tendency that Trump considers all his critics, all his opponents as personal enemies. It's dictatorial tendency, and and many of Russian immigrants still like this. To blame journalists as liars, to use a phrase so-called, so-called judges, so-called journalists, to consider all critics as enemy of people, using conspiracy theories. It's very Russian theory. That all protest action were paid, that all protests are headed by left radicals and anarchists, paid by Soros and so on. It's common Russian conspiracy theories from Russian propaganda. And many people from Russian diaspora maintain this Soviet mentality. They want to see a strong leader. Strong leaders they consider as a brute force. They can.
Is this because they came here looking for better life economically versus politically?
Yes, maybe the main reasons on which they came here was economically, not politically. I just cannot explain this phenomenon. But we see another dangerous trend, that some Americans, for example, in the United States, that between two evils, Trump and Putin, they choose Putin because at least he is more restrained, smarter, and more cunning than Trump. In fact, Russian leader, his behavior is more stable, subtle, and his line is more professional, and he has at least some charm of KGB. He's smarter, he's clever, but brutal type of Donald Trump pushes away the intelligentsia. And I already saw that some people prefer Trump to Putin. It's really very, very sad tendency that I cannot now explain to my allies, to my sources, to my friends about why America now is better than Russia. Only that America is not reduced to Trump. Trump doesn't represent all Americans. But of course Putin looks better than Trump, and we should admit it. And don't forget about another threat. Yes, we really have some threats from the left side, but this threat also directed from Russia. For example, maybe you called about movement Yes California. It's a secessionist movement headed by Luis Marinelli. And now its movement became very popular because we have a lot of protests against Donald Trump in California. It's very it's honest, sincerest process because the majority of people just consider actions and behavior of Donald Trump as absolutely unacceptable. And of course, America needs this protest mood because it can prevent and make a system of some checks and balances.
So are you looking at this from the point of view that Kseniya, so are you looking at this from the point of view of that if Putin is supporting extremists all over the world, regardless of whether they're left or right, then Kremlin can just as happily support California's secession movement as they would Trump?
As I said, absolutely right. Yes, as I said before, California protest movement is absolutely sincerest, but Trump Putin tried to support radical groups, both left and right. It's regardless of their views. And
Now, the term, Kseniya, the term that apparently KGB uses, and just, I mean, you probably know, but listeners might not, is a subversion. And just a general idea of causing havoc. Because it's much easier to do that than to try to steal some kind of a, engineering blueprint and do those kinds of things. Although Soviet Union, God knows, has done enough of that. But this is more about the fact that, just the idea of subversion.
No, FSB, of course, takes advantage from this situation. For example, a movement, Yes, California, was organized 2 years before Trump, before these elections. So it had no connections with current situation and with Trump activity because it was created before this. And Luis Marinelli took part. He called Russia before these elections. He called Russia his second home. And even moved to my hometown, to Yekaterinburg, because it's directly quote, he could no longer live under American flag. I noticed Marinelli still a few months before the elections, when he took part in the Secessionist Forum in Moscow in September 25th. Maybe you heard about this separatist forum, dialogue of nations, the right of people to self-determination and constructions of multipolar world. I know how the Russian FSB operates. It's impossible to take part in this forum if you are not elected to them or directly to the Kremlin. After the forum, he gave an interview to RT, where he called, as I mentioned, Russia his second home, and also said he is continuous. He is counting on the support of Russia. It was before Trump, and now Trump is only a pretext under which Marinelli increased his activities. And of course, Trump is his favorite word, terrible president, maybe the worst president of the United States, incompetence, unhonest. We still didn't see his tax returns. He has some connections with Putin. Of course, he broke relationships with our allies abroad, including Germany, England, Europe. But it's not a reason to destroy the country. Presidents go and come and leave, come and go, but America should stay. And of course, it's Putin's sweet dream. He badly wants to destroy our country. And Marinelli, the same Putin's puppet, like some people from Trump administration. So, of course, it's really disturbing. It's very worrying for me that some people against Trump, who are against Trump, began to believe Marinelli. It's the same threat from the same source.
So you view that as still playing into kind of Kremlin's hands?
Yes.
Well, and of course the irony is that the one of the biggest fears that Kremlin has is that Russian provinces will decide to engage in secession for a variety of reasons, from natural resources to gangland regimes going rogue to Chinese moving in to who knows what. Russia has a huge territory it can't really service or guard. So that's a kind of their real irony there. Kseniya Kirillova, thank you so much for being on the
please,
program.
I want to apologize for my English. I try to improve my language skills. It really was more worth 2 years ago.
We look forward to seeing how your English improves over time. Thank you so much, Kseniya Kirillova. Take care. You're listening to 91.7 FM, WSUW, in Whitewater, Wisconsin. You're listening to Rashkin Report.